Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get into this week's show. Happy Hump Day, and welcome back to Season 2 of Sex on the Peach. I'm your host Peach, and after a simple 69-day break since the end of Season 1, I am back to continue the open, honest, sometimes uncomfortable conversations about all things sex and relationships. As people may know, I'm also currently back in a show and on tour around the UK, so it has been a crazy busy couple of months. But obviously, 69 days seemed like a perfectly apt amount of time to have off, and I'm so excited about this next season and some of the incredible guests and discussions I have coming up throughout this second series. Thank you so much to everyone who has continued to tune in whilst I have been away. And also thank you to everyone who has sent me questions and topics that they would like to hear spoken about. Off the back of this, today's first episode back is all about casual sex and, as people call them today, situationships. Casual sex comes with a lot of judgment and unwarranted opinion, but the truth is, as a huge personal champion of it, with the correct boundaries and communication, casual sex can be an incredibly fulfilling and liberating experience. Is it possible to have casual sex without any emotional attachment? And how do we get around the complexities of casual sex and relationships? Today we're going to discuss whether casual sex may or may not be right for you, how to navigate the different types of casual sex, and also how to have casual sex without behaving like a bit of a jackass. As always, I will also be answering some of your questions. So, let's get back into it. Here is Netflix and Not So Chill. Okay, let's be honest. In society's eyes, casual sex is still seen as a fairly controversial topic. Yes, it is beginning to become a little more normalised, but there's still a whole heap of judgment, especially towards women and vulva owners who choose a more casual sexual lifestyle. It's still relatively divided, with a lot of people considering it a morally wrong and harmful way to behave, even though it's absolutely none of anyone's goddamn business what you choose to do with your time and body. Let's start by defining what casual sex really is. Casual sex is sexual activity between two people who are not in a committed relationship and do not have any expectation of a long-term commitment. Casual sex can take many forms, from a one-night stand to a longer friends with benefits arrangement. An ongoing casual sex arrangement or relationship has, in today's world, become better known as a situationship. Now, a situationship is a romantic or sexual relationship that is not clearly defined and is often characterized by ambiguity, uncertainty, and lack of commitment. So, we're going to explore the various aspects of situationships, their benefits, their drawbacks, and also discuss how to navigate them. There is, as already mentioned, the friends with benefits vibe, where two people engage in sexual activity without any emotional attachment or commitment. Or even the almost relationship, where people have a deeper connection and even romantic feelings for each other, but are hesitant to define the relationship or make any further commitments. I've been completely open on past episodes about the fact I've been living what would be considered a solo polyamorous lifestyle for a while, which could definitely be considered a lifestyle of casual sex and situationships. So I feel fairly confident on how to talk people through this and help people to navigate the world of casual sex and multiple sexual partners without giving it pure fuckboy energy. You can probably guess that I'm not a huge fan of the term fuckboy, especially because I think people can behave in that way no matter what their gender identity. But it is a specific type of behavior that needs to be addressed in the world of casual sex. Because if this is the lifestyle you're choosing, then there is a way to do it without hurting people. Casual sex is not a place for you to increase your social status or boost your self-esteem. It's a place for you to explore your sexuality and experience pleasure without the pressure or commitment of a long-term relationship. For anyone wondering what the landscape of casual sex and situationships currently looks like, according to a study conducted by the Kinsey Institute, about 60% of men and penis owners and 50% of women and vulva owners have had a one-night stand at some point in their lives. A survey conducted by the online dating app Tinder found that 80% of its users were looking for casual hookups rather than a relationship. A study conducted by the dating app Hinge found that 76% of its users had been in a situationship before. And a study by the dating app Zeus found that 37% of people said they enjoyed being in a situationship because it allowed them to focus on themselves and their personal goals. I don't know if those numbers are higher than people expected, but needless to say, if you are partaking in casual sex or situationships, you are far from alone. Now, casual sex is simply not going to be for everyone. And if it isn't for you, that's 100% fine. I know we live in a world where we are supposed to pretend to be totally cool with whatever is thrown at us, but fuck that. If you are looking for a more serious romantic relationship and don't get fulfillment from casual sex setups, then maybe it's not for you, and there is nothing wrong with that. You do not ever have to compromise your own wants and desires for the sake of a society that wants us to be chill. Be honest with yourself. If you're actually looking for something else, going along with a casual sex relationship or situationship can really set you up for disappointment and can also leave you feeling anxious or rejected. And that is absolutely not what you want for yourself. Obviously, communication is everything, and we are going to get onto that shortly. But self-awareness about what you really want and need from another person is key. So if casual sex isn't your jam, then it isn't your jam, honey. Some people are truly able to engage in casual sex without any emotional attachment. And the reason I'm confident to say that is I personally count myself as one of those people. It has been incredibly easy for me to maintain purely sexual relationships with people without any outside feelings getting involved. For others, it can be a challenge. It is usually suggested that women and vulva owners are more likely to experience negative emotional consequences and feelings from casual sex, such as feelings of regret or shame. But I honestly believe this is mostly down to the fuckwit societal norms that dictate that women and vulva owners should be more cautious about their sexual behaviour. I've explained in previous episodes that even when I was super young, I was never bothered about the judgment surrounding women and vulva owners being promiscuous, and was always very open about my sexual experiences and happy to own them, no matter what people's opinions were. But I appreciate a lot of women and vulva owners haven't always felt like that and still don't. And indeed, I have many friends who have been embarrassed or ashamed to talk about casual sex casual hookups, one-night stands. And for that reason, I really wish we had all grown up in a more open-minded society that gave us all more permission to be sexual and experimental. And I'm only hoping that this podcast and other similar podcasts can at least start encouraging this now. I would like to think the stigma is lifting, but it seems everything in this world is one step forward and 89 steps back. So I also have little faith. It goes without saying that engaging in casual sex should always be consensual and safe. As we know and have discussed on basically every single episode of this podcast since day one, consent is always the number one priority. So whatever your arrangement or situation with someone, make sure the consent is there. And don't assume just because you've had casual sex with that person once, twice, or even 50 times that it's a sure thing. Make sure the consent is there. Check in every time. And if you're in an arrangement where you're exploring a lot with each other, check the consent is there for every new explorative turn you take sexually. Don't just assume that your setup is a no-holds-barred environment. Converse and check in and make sure everything you're engaging in together comes from that consensual space. Respect each other's boundaries and do not ever pressure someone into engaging in sexual activity that they are not comfortable with. Obviously, anyone partaking in any sexual activity needs to be aware, open, and honest about their sexual health, and all parties will want to discuss the methods of protection they are going to use. If you do have multiple casual sex partners, it is important to stay on top of your sexual health, as you would any other type of physical health. Make sure you get tested regularly and be responsible in your use of protection with your partners. Casual doesn't mean disposable, and it's not fair to treat any sexual partner's health as irrelevant. If you are choosing to engage in intimate acts together, then it's your responsibility to do so healthily and respectfully. Okay, let's talk about it. You guessed it, communication, which when it comes to casual sex, and yes, sex in general, but hopefully less so if you're listening to this podcast on the regs, one of the biggest challenges is communication. There can be a lot of assumptions and expectations that go unspoken. People might assume that they're on the same page about what they want and what the boundaries are, but that's not always the case. It's so very, very important to have an open and honest conversation about what you are truly looking for, what you are comfortable with, and what your expectations are before you get physically involved. Make sure you are comfortable stating your intentions and letting people know that you are only looking to have casual sex right now and not looking for anything beyond that. I honestly think the easiest way is to be clear and direct. You can literally say something to someone like, I really enjoy spending time with you and I'm interested in exploring a physical relationship, but before we go any further, I want to make sure we are on the same page about what we want and what our boundaries are. Are you happy for us to talk about that? Emotional safety is as important as physical safety in our casual sex setups. And this is something that can be protected with clear and honest communication. It's important to be honest with yourself about what you're looking for and what your emotional boundaries are. If you know you're not interested in anything more than a physical relationship, be clear about that from the beginning. However, if you start to develop feelings for someone, it is okay to communicate that and reassess whether the relationship is still meeting your needs. We are human. Our minds are nuanced and very, very complex. You can have the best intentions and boundaries in the world, and sometimes you still catch feels, babe. and that isn't something to be embarrassed or ashamed of. If you find that you are on a cycle of having casual setups with people and you end up falling for them, you might want to look at what leads you to catch those feelings. Are you being intimate in other ways that are then leading you to care for that person in a deeper way? If you're engaging in behaviors that lend themselves to that, then you might want to stop the behaviors that lead you to catch those feelings and change up the dynamics in your casual sex setup. We are responsible for being honest with our sexual partners, but we're also responsible for taking stock of our own feelings and acting on them accordingly. And if you're engaging in something that leads you to keep getting hurt, you owe yourself better, I promise you, because that's not an environment that will continue to provide you with pleasure or satisfaction. I do have to be honest at this point. As a woman and vulva owner who has casual sex setups, regardless of how honest and direct I am with every single one of my casual sex partners, it has still happened multiple times that some of my previous male and penis owner partners have expected after a certain amount of time that I would then want to take things further and into a deeper relationship with them, which unfortunately wasn't the case and is obviously no reflection on those people as partners. It's completely on me and just isn't where I was at the time. But it still reflects on the old adage that women and vulva owners can only have sex with someone for so long without surely wanting to then be in a relationship with the men and penis owner in the situation. And I'm going to say, babies, it's time to do away with this attitude. Women and vulva owners are owning ourselves as the sexual beings we are now. And if we tell you that's all we want, then that's all we want. It was difficult because my main aim is to always navigate my lifestyle in a way that doesn't hurt people. But if you know that along the way you've been honest and open and clear with your partners, then you can look back at the situation and know that there is nothing else you could have done. That's what stops you from being a fuckboy. That being said, last year, I also found myself in a friends with benefits situation in which my own feelings shifted, and it all became a bit of an emotional and logistical nightmare. I promise you, I don't have it all figured out. My own sex life and experiences can be just as messy and traumatic as all of yours. So half the time when I say you're not alone, I'm literally right there with you. It happens. You're human. It's okay. Beyond communication about the arrangement itself, if you are in a casual sex setup, this frees you up to have open, honest discussions about the actual sex itself. So go for it. Talk to your sexual partner or partners about what works for you to make sex satisfying. Maybe you're someone who needs a lot of foreplay. That's me. I'm someone. Maybe you have a specific style of sex that you prefer. Maybe you're looking to try out and explore new specific things and want to navigate that together. One of the best things about casual sex setups is it can be a super positive way to explore your sexuality. It can build your self-confidence, and you can simply have fun and add some spice to your sex life. It opens up a door to so much experimentation and not only allows you to talk about it, but also to practice it. And the more honest sexual communication you can have with your sexual partners in a casual setting, the more equipped you will feel to have sexual conversations going forward into potentially longer-term relationships, should that be a lifestyle you want to choose. If you are into situationship territory, let's be honest, they can be really complicated because there may also be a level of emotional intimacy and sometimes even a level of exclusivity. But if there is no clear agreement or commitment about the future of the relationship, whatever that means, it can lead to feelings of hurt or disappointment or rejection. Without clear communication and boundaries, it is absolutely natural that one or both parties can have unrealistic expectations or can just misinterpret each other's intentions. If you feel there is no clear commitment or direction, it's easy to get stuck in a cycle of uncertainty, wondering if the other person is really interested in you, really interested in a long-term relationship beyond the situationship, or if they are just enjoying the benefits of a romantic connection without the commitment. And you don't want to live in that limbo. You don't want to be in that kind of emotionally draining environment. Always trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, don't ignore it. I promise you, you always have the right to change your mind and to set the boundaries that feel comfortable for you. The other concern with situationships is the potential for unequal power dynamics. One person may have more emotional investment than the other, which can lead to feelings of insecurity and vulnerability, especially if one person is using the other for their own emotional or physical needs without any regard for the other person's feelings or well-being. See above. Fuckboy. So, how to go about this in a healthy and respectful manner? I'm not even going to say the word because you know the answer. It is desperately important to be clear and honest about your feelings and expectations, and to listen to the other person's perspective as well. This includes discussing boundaries, expectations, concerns, issues. It is so important to regularly check in with each other to ensure that both parties are on the same page. Be honest and transparent about your own emotions and desires, but also always respect the other person's right to their own feelings and boundaries. This is a mutual situation, not one person against the other. It is so important to avoid any behavior that may be felt as manipulative or emotionally abusive, such as leading someone on or using them for your own needs without any regard for their feelings. However, on the plus side, a situationship provides freedom and flexibility. Without the pressure of a defined relationship, you can explore your emotions, your desires, without worrying about the expectations and obligations that come with a committed relationship. It can be a way to satisfy your physical and emotional needs without the risks and responsibilities of long-term commitments. So although they can be a complex phenomenon, a situationship can actually be an amazing way to enjoy the physical and some of the emotional benefits of a relationship without the constraints of traditional dating. I know that situationships get a bit of an icky reputation, but ultimately it is up to you to decide what type of relationship works best for you, as long as it is done in a responsible and respectful manner. But what to do if you do get caught up with someone with fuckboy energy? As I said before, I believe any gender identity can behave in pretty shitty ways, but the term fuckboy is reserved for those who engage in casual sexual relationships with multiple partners, often simultaneously, without any intention of committing or building an emotional connection, which is actually okay, as long as you treat people with some fucking respect. But therein lies the problem. If you are actually just exploiting people for your own pleasure, or you use ghosting or other manipulative tactics to avoid any accountability or responsibility, or cause significant emotional harm to your partners, or give them false hope, or make promises you have no intention of keeping, it's time to absolutely get your shit together. You have no place leaving your sexual partners feeling used and rejected, or putting them in a position of moving on from your encounters with them with feelings of insecurity, self-doubt, and even trauma. Casual sex is at its most enjoyable experience when both parties are on the same page and have clear expectations. So not only are you basically a complete asshole, you're also not getting your best sexual experiences out of your own terrible situation either. So, what can we do about fuckboys or fuck people? The first step is to recognize these signs and just fucking avoid engaging with them in the first place. They can cause significant emotional harm and they should just be avoided. There is absolutely no point trying to change someone who has this energy. They don't care, and they are not going to change for you. Do yourself a favor and get the fuck out. Don't bother with games or one-upping. I promise you, life is too fucking short, and you're only denying yourself time with someone who not only will have respect for you as a human, but also you'll more than likely have better sex with. I want you to see your casual sex experiences as a space where you feel free to give and receive pleasure. And if that isn't what you're getting, it's time to get the hell out of Dodge, honey. So, some rules for casual sex in a nutshell before I move on to your questions for this week. Number 1, do not lose sight of your sexual partner's humanity. We are people, not bodies, and we are casual, not expendable. Share your sexual health status and discuss your practices for safe sex. Treat your sexual partner's body with respect and care. Do not coerce or mislead people into a sexual relationship under the guise of future commitment, if that's not what you're looking for. And on the flip side of that, don't pretend to be satisfied with a casual encounter if you actually want something serious. Be upfront about what you can and cannot offer your sexual partner. Communicate your boundaries. Ask your sexual partner if there is anything they would like for you to know. Ask your sexual partner for what you need. Give them what they need if it is within your power to do so. Create a sexual experience together as opposed to using each other for your separate enjoyment. Value your sexual partner's pleasure as much as your own. Pay attention to your sexual partner's comfort level. Check in with them frequently, and if they seem uncomfortable, stop what you are doing and ask if they are okay. If you are uncomfortable, tell them you need to stop. Remember, you are always allowed to change your mind. Don't make promises you don't intend to keep. If you don't want to see someone again, thank them for the experience and wish them well. But also, you don't need to play power games. If you want to see people again, just tell them. After having sex, even in a casual setting, see to your sexual partner's needs. People don't cease to matter just because you've had an orgasm. Care about your sexual partners and care about yourself. Those are just my tips for creating a gorge little sexy environment for you to have the most pleasure together. Now we're going to move on to your questions for today. Number 1. Do you think it's possible to be close friends with someone if you used to sleep together casually, but now they are in a relationship with a somewhat territorial partner? The partner knows about it. Okay, so whilst I would like to say, sure, of course, that's probably completely fine. The truth is, whether or not it's possible to maintain a close friendship with someone after having a casual sexual relationship is going to depend on multiple factors. including the specific individuals involved and how everyone really feels about the situation as a whole, the nature of the relationship itself, and also the circumstances surrounding why your casual sex setup ended. I personally have past casual sex partners that I'm friends with as if nothing ever happened, but also others who I am no longer able to have that kind of friendship with. So it's not really a one-size-fits-all situation in which to say, sure, it's a definite thing, or no, it absolutely isn't, because it's one of those things that could head in a million different directions. But of course, I do think it is possible. Ultimately, the success of any friendship depends on open communication, mutual respect, and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances. So this is a conversation you will need to have with each other. That might be a difficult and even uncomfortable conversation, but if you care about your friendship moving forward and you want to maintain a friendship with that person, then it's important to have it and give each other the chance to say how you feel. And also, whatever the outcome of the conversation, I think you will feel better just having a bit more clarity on the situation. I know you say they have a partner who leans toward a more territorial nature, which, listen, I would of course love us to live in an open arms world where this kind of stuff just didn't matter, but we're human and jealousy exists, and we can't ignore that or immediately demonize someone for feeling that way. But it could, of course, potentially complicate your friendship dynamic. It's important to respect the boundaries that your friend puts in place for their new relationship. So again, this is something you will most likely need to sit down and have a conversation about together. It's hard and it can be hurtful if you know there isn't an issue there and you still care about that person and want them in your life. But if their new partner is uncomfortable with the idea of their significant other maintaining a close friendship with someone they previously had a sexual relationship with, they might want you to respect some of their wishes and maintain an appropriate distance. This doesn't necessarily mean ending the friendship altogether, but it may require a shift in the level of intimacy or nature of the interactions between the two of you. I do honestly think that if the two of you are committed to maintaining a friendship past your sexual relationship, you can work together to find a way to navigate the challenges presented by this new relationship. But it is going to take honest communication from all parties. So make it your priority to have those conversations and just make sure everyone has the space to communicate their boundaries and feelings. I really hope that you find a way to all make it work in a way that is best for you. Next question. Why do you think there is so much judgment about situationships, and do you feel like they can be fulfilling if done openly and with good communication? As mentioned, the thing with situationships is they are literally characterized by a lack of clear definition and commitment. And that invites judgment and criticism because they don't align with traditional relationship norms and expectations. Many people still believe that every relationship going should involve commitment and the potential for long-term partnership, marriage, blah, 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 whereas situationships may not have these elements. Obviously, this is sex on the beach, so fuck people and their judgments. You do what you want. Situationships can be fulfilling for people if they are entered into with open communication, mutual understanding, and realistic expectations. As discussed earlier in the episode, if people are honest about their desires and intentions, and there is a shared understanding that the relationship may not necessarily lead to a long-term commitment, situationships can provide a safe and enjoyable way to explore emotional and physical connections without that pressure of traditional relationship expectations. Yes, they can be challenging and may lead to emotional pain or confusion if one party does develop stronger feelings or expectations that are not reciprocated. So it's essential to prioritize frequent and ongoing communication, honesty, and mutual respect to ensure that everyone involved feels valued and fulfilled. I am 100% here for a situationship that is handled correctly. I think they can be incredibly fun and satisfying. And if it works for you, then that is all that matters. So if that's what you want, then honey, you go for it. Do you think it's better to have casual sex with someone who you wouldn't see regularly otherwise? I honestly wouldn't like to say what is better because, as always, I want you to do what works best for you. I can see that casual sex with someone who you wouldn't see regularly can have potential benefits because there may be space for less emotional attachment or expectation, which can allow for a more carefree and enjoyable sexual experience. Also, when you say see regularly, do you mean at work, in a group of mutual friends? I'm guessing if you would rather keep your sexual experiences outside of these spaces, I can completely understand that. Because sometimes it's nice to just keep those things separate. And I guess there may be less risk of complications or awkwardness if an encounter doesn't go as planned or you run into any roadblocks along the way. It just gives you the personal space to deal with those things and not have to confront them in an environment in which you would rather not. However, if you are choosing to have casual sex with someone who you don't know very well or don't see regularly, there may also be less familiarity and trust. And that can sometimes lead to misunderstandings or miscommunication during sexual encounters. So, as with everything, there's pros and cons. Whether you see each other regularly or not, if you are engaging in casual sex with each other, it's really important to stay accountable for behavior and boundaries because you don't ever want to put yourself in an uncomfortable or unsafe situation. Ultimately, as long as you prioritize safety, respect, mutual consent in your sexual encounters, and you're honest with yourself and your sexual partner or partners about your intentions and expectations, that is what is going to matter the most here, whether that person is someone you see regularly or not. And beyond that, it's going to be whatever feels best for you. And if you want to be able to keep your sexual space separate from your work, personal, social space, then I think it is absolutely possible to navigate and enjoy that. Last question for today. What's a nice way to say to my partner, it makes me uncomfortable that you tell a girl you used to have casual sex with that you love her? Because even if it is in fact just platonic, I cannot relate and I don't want to sound jealous or judgmental. In a way, you've almost answered your own question in your question. It's important to communicate your feelings and concerns to your partner. Tell them how you feel. Don't worry so much about sounding jealous or judgmental that you suffer in silence, because it is absolutely possible to talk to them about this in a clear and respectful manner. You can absolutely just say to them, hey, I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind. I know that you have a friendship with insert name who you used to have casual sex with, and I understand that your relationship is now platonic, but it makes me uncomfortable when you tell her that you love her. I just want to be honest with you that I can't relate to that kind of language in a friendship, and it makes me feel uneasy. I'm not trying to be judgmental or controlling, but I wanted to share my feelings with you so we can discuss it and find a way to move forward that feels good for both of us. This way, you're giving your partner the opportunity to understand your perspective and work with you to find a solution that works for both of you by being clear and honest about your feelings without placing any blame or making assumptions. I know that I find it easy to tell past sexual partners love you without it meaning anything at all, but I can also absolutely see how that could make a new partner feel uncomfortable. All sides of this situation are valid, and it's going to be so much easier solved by being open about it rather than allowing yourself to become anxious or resentful, which could end up projecting in other areas of your relationship. Of course, there is the probability that because your partner might see it as so innocent and platonic, they might not get it in the same way you see it. So try your best to just keep an open mind when you go into the discussion and be willing to listen to your partner's perspective as well. As long as you're approaching these issues as a team, that's always the most important thing and the healthiest environment for working through things like this. So any conversations approached with mutual empathy and respect will hopefully always end in the most positive result for you both as a couple. I know it can be scary to start these conversations, but you've got this, I promise you. And as always, do feel free to follow up and let me know how it goes and if I can help in any other way. Well, that's it for today and for the first episode of Season 2 of Sex on the Peach. I truly hope there were some helpful tips and info out there for anyone feeling alone or confused amongst the minefield that is casual sex and situationships. Every single person's individual experience is, of course, going to be completely different. But I really do believe that with some self-awareness of what you're truly looking for and honest, direct communication within that, you can create positive and fulfilling sexual relationships for yourselves and your partners. Thank you so much for joining me for the second Sex on the Peach journey. I'm so happy to have you here. Next week, we'll be discussing how our sex lives can be affected by good old social media. So any thoughts, questions, musings, opinions, feel free to send them over so I can address them in the next episode. Until then, thanks for coming. Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love.